Welcome to Machine Tool Maniacs, the podcast where machining, fabrication, entrepreneurship, and bringing ideas to life collide. Around here, every story is a success story. I'm Matt, a second-generation manufacturer who's been in the shop since I was in diapers, learning the tools, the trade, and the people behind it all. Nearly everything in our daily lives is passed through a CNC machine. And we're here to spotlight the makers turning raw material into reality. Whether you're dreaming big or building bigger, this is your inside track to making it happen. All right, welcome back to the second half of my conversation with Rocky Parkerton from AZ 3D Print and Regolith Forge. In this part of the episode, we get into the future of his shop, what machine tool purchases he's eyeing next, why those decisions matter, and how they'll level up what he can offer. We also dive deep into Regolith Forge and how Rocky's using it as a platform to create his own products in-house. We talk about what it really takes to start developing products, how to market them, and how to spot real needs in the community that actually builds solutions for them. Let's jump back in.
It's going to be a Multus B. I think it's the 300.
Yeah, mill turn environment. So
Fall mill turn. So no turrets, no other bells and whistles other than part catcher and bar feeder, and simultaneous 5-axis motion, because we've got parts. I've got parts that we're doing in the mill on a regular basis that I could switch over to doing on a bar feed, and it's automation in a box. So
it's six-sided machining. That's why I a lot of times I go into shops, and it doesn't always have to be a Multus, but there's the Mazak Integrex, there's the Morisiki NTX, Doosan has their DNX 2100, but they all have a version of a mill turn, and it's crazy to me how many times you go into a shop and they say, well, I want to automate this. I want to have two machines and a robot that grabs this part from this 3-axis mill and sticks it in this 3-axis mill. And it's like, well, have you ever thought about just running this in a mill turn environment, or maybe even just a lathe with live tooling? Your only restriction there is as a 12-station turret, you run out of tool space real quick. So
and then if you've got the Multus B with 120 tools, then you very rarely have to set up new tools. Like, that's got a pretty solid tool crib there.
And you don't have to worry about, did I put an OD turn tool next to a drill, and I'm worried about that drill running into the chuck when I'm right up against it. It eliminates a lot of that headache, but it comes at a little bit pricier price tag. So I guess it's just what you value. But I like your style, straight for the advanced stuff. So
you have to. It's also making a niche for yourself. So you go to all the job shops in town. There are no other job shops in town with 5-axis mill that, other than Haas's, that are out there doing stuff here in Tucson. The only other place you see it is places like Raytheon or a couple of the other missile aerospace companies, but they're only making their own parts. So, we're trying to make it accessible to the other businesses we do business with. Like, hey, if you got something that's tighter tolerance, you don't have to send it to Texas to get the stuff done, or we can cut your price point on if they do have somebody in town willing to do it on a Haas, but it's going to take them 20% longer because of spindle speed, shatter, all the other things that are going to be a problem with doing it in a Haas.
Yeah,
and get to come to us, and we get to see what we can do for them.
So I've noticed on your website too that you have a wire EDM. Where did that come along in your progression, and why did you get that machine?
Mostly because it was part of my apprenticeship. I going all the way back then. Uh, so the reason I ended up doing wire EDM, the shop foreman at one point when I was probably 2 years into working in the shop said, "Hey, you seem like you're picking up all this stuff and you want to learn all the things." The guy who they only had one guy in the shop who knew how to run the wire EDM and do all that stuff. And they go, "We're going to put you with Dave, and Dave's going to teach you the wire EDM. You'll start next week." And the guy, like 3 days later, came out of the company Thursday meeting or whatever it was, and walked out front of the shop, lit a cigarette, had a massive coronary. He was dead before his knees hit the ground. He had people giving him CPR in front of the shop within 15 seconds of the time he went down. And the paramedics were like, there was nothing anybody could have done. He could have had this coronary in the ambulance, and we couldn't have saved him. Like
Wow.
he was gone. So after his memorial, the general manager and the owner of the shop came to me, and they go, "Look, here's the deal. Work's stacking up in front of that machine, and we don't have anybody, but we could go hire somebody with experience to come in and get this done, and you can learn from them, or you can just go figure it out because you seem like you're that guy." And I went, "Well, I'll go figure it out. So they handed me a book that was Mitsubishi's Japanese little green panel booklet.
Mm-hmm.
And I filtered through the Japanese, and the numbers were really helpful.
Jinglish.
Yeah, and I figured it out. So after about 6 months of beating my head against it, I was the guy who could come in like the Fonz and rub the machine and give it a little bump, and everything would be good. I had figured it out. Then the owner of the company came to me after the workbench was cleared, and we were all caught up, and he goes, "Hey, now that you've got time, how about I send you to Chicago to Mitsubishi for 2 weeks for their programming and maintenance classes, and I'll pay for that because you did such a good job with this." So I did. I went to Chicago and I got certifications on Mitsubishi wire. So
Hmm.
yeah. So it was funny. And then later on, it helped. If you're working in firearms, there's broaching magwells and stuff like that is a thing, but it's easier to make that uh, a tighter tolerance and a much more repeatable and much more accurate thing just by doing, and especially in low volume, doing it in a wire EDM sometimes makes more sense. So especially if you're doing custom stuff. So it helped out over the years knowing how that worked. And when I got back here to Tucson, I found out that the place I did my apprenticeship sold both of their wire EDMs, and nobody in town is really offering it anymore as a service. So of course I'm gonna offer it as a service.
Nice. Yeah. I know it's hard to find people that offer
Yeah,
that. So, and the other useful thing, and maybe for anybody to think about, a lot of times I worked in a medical device company for a while, and we would run parts on a dovetail. So either like a fifth axis dovetail vise, or we used Raptor work holding a lot at the time. And what we would do is we would find a feature sometimes on our parts that, well, if you could just cut it off with a key cutter, if it was 100% flat, that was the way to go. But if you could find a feature that if they could wire it off, like say it had some complexity, but it was something that could be wired, you could just take your part on your dovetail straight over to the wire and just wire it off, and then you'd have a complete part. So
yeah,
it made making those parts off the 5-axis machine incredibly efficient.
yeah,
And that's a real useful thing to have a wire in a shop like yours, especially where you have a 5-axis machine. I mean, even if you don't, they're still useful, but that's one application that I personally really like to have a wire around for.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you do a lot of more short run type work.
Yeah. And it's funny because my whole career has been like prototype to short run production. I think the largest production run I've ever set up on was 18,000 parts. And the next biggest was probably 10. I'd say 10 has been, uh, and so our current shop, we just got done running 2,000 parts, but we've run those parts 3 or 4 times this year, and they run for, that job runs for about 2 weeks, and we get a couple thousand parts, and then it goes away, and 5 months from now it'll set up, and we'll do it again for 2 weeks,
Got
and
it.
we just stock on the shelf for the customer, and they come through and they buy them, like 150, 200 at a time. We got a lot of work like that right now where we're set up with customers where we try and set it up so we keep enough stock on the shelf that we can fit in one-off parts anytime we want. That allows us to keep really short lead times and at the same time fulfill repeat orders really easily. So, it makes for a good thing when we've got a good working relationship with other companies that, we can trust to, be back in 2 months for another however many parts.
So what has been your strategy? I mean, it sounds like just you've already kind of just I don't want to call it luck, but a lot of work has fallen into your lap. So have you found yourself having to employ a strategy of any sort of marketing or really going out and trying to hustle for work?
So that's probably where my biggest deficit is, and also our general manager Tony is, we both find ourselves lacking trying to figure out, like, how do we get Google to not screw up what we are, where we are. Like, for the longest time when we moved to the new shop, Google listed us as permanently closed on the other side of town. And people were calling me like, what happened, man? Did the whole thing just collapse on you? I'm like, no, we're here working.
We're here. We're good.
Yeah, talking. So, but I would say Google has been our only real working sales strategy. We've tried over the last 5 years to do marketing campaigns with probably 4 different companies, and like none of it has turned out for the good. Uh, the last one that we did, we started getting bombarded with calls and emails like, "Hey, we need a drive shaft. Hey, we need and it was like large car like parts.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like custom car parts. It was like, I need the rear end from a 1976 Chevy Impala machined from billet. Like, what? What are you talking about? I don't
And
even know what.
I've got a couple $100. Could you do it for that
Yeah,
much?
exactly. And man, I'm willing to pay as much as a couple $100 for it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, sure. I'll just take $5,000 to this job and ship it right over to you. Like, very, very, so marketing has not been good for us. Google has done a pretty good job. Word of mouth and knowing people kind of just locally in the industry has probably garnered us the most work. I was lucky enough when I was still doing it in my home office that a competitor of where I was working at Raytheon was asking me to 3D print parts for them for little prototyping type stuff.
Hmm.
And then so I did that. Well, we did that when we were in our leased shop, and that kind of carried on. And when we had our grand opening for the new building and everything, and we invited all of our customers, we had like 100 people here. We had a sushi truck out front and beer in the fridge, and 100 people showed up. That other, uh, missile company comes in and they go, how come you didn't tell us you had a 5-axis machine? And I'm like, well, that's new. Like that just showed up. And I go, but we're not AS 9100 certified. I haven't done ITAR. I'm not doing any of that stuff because I don't need the expense right now. We're trying to buy equipment. We're not trying to buy, what basically amounts to a tax. We're not looking to pay more taxes.
Yeah.
And so they go, well, that doesn't matter. You're on the preferred vendors list. You've been making parts now for us for 3 years, and you've never been late, and you've never given us a non-conforming part. And so you're in. We'll send you whatever.
Nice.
And I was like, really? So, yeah. So the preferred vendors list means something. And
so they just house you under their regulatory license, basically.
It means that they have to QC my parts whenever I send them 100%. But so as long as I don't get dinged and I'm at the 100th percentile, they're just going to keep on sending us whatever they want to send us.
Got it. So, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So stuff like that has happened, and I don't know if it's chance, if it's luck, if it's just me beating my face into it long enough that it gives up. But I know I keep coming in and trying real hard. So, I think that's really what it amounts to, is as long as you don't quit, or give up or throw bad attitude, stuff happens. And when it's bad stuff, you just got to be able to just shrug it off and move on to the thing that's going to work.
Yeah.
We're still on the hunt. Yeah. I wish I had the secret sauce when it came to marketing, but we haven't found it yet. We do have a really good quotation software on our website that is through a really good AI company that we really enjoy being kind of partners with. Those guys are Fazio, for anybody who wants to know. They do. They are the ones. They're the second company that I've had that did drag and drop quotation for our 3D printed parts, but they're now incorporating 5-axis machine parts into their quotation tool. We haven't released it yet on our website because we're working on the algorithm for it. But stuff like that's been really, really helpful. But I can't say that I've come across a marketing agency yet that's been able to pinpoint to other businesses, large corporations, government contracts, that kind of thing. All the government work that we see come through here is from another 2 machine shops in town, and we're sub. So we don't have to do any of the ISO or the ITAR stuff. They bring us the work, give it to them. We've QC'd it, but they also QC it. We've got a key-end scanner for small parts like shoebox size that we can issue out scan reports. It's accurate to 4/10, and we can show, this is what the scanner sees. And, we've got the rest of the GD&T stuff down here. So we can issue out that kind of thing when people ask for it. We also work off napkin sketches. So
nice. The full gamut. Well, tell us about Regolith Forge.
So I have a pair of kids that are 11 and 14 that during COVID, my oldest wanted to be able to go dove hunting. And I looked for a shotgun that would fit him. And they, like every shotgun manufacturer says, they make a used shotgun. Go to any firearms store between here and the north side of Phoenix and find one. And during COVID, they were gone. There was no such thing. So I actually designed and 3D printed a shorter length of pole shotgun stock for him, so I could take him out dove hunting. And that turned into the first product for Regolith Forge. Then I had somebody come in who had seen the shotgun stock, and they go, "Hey, I've got a great idea for your next product." And they brought me a Ruger Ranch rifle that took it. It was a 7.62 by 39, or 7.62 by 39 rifle, Russian ammo that takes a Mini 14 magazine, and
Uh-huh.
Mini 14 mags are really expensive, and they're only 10 rounds.
Uh-huh.
So the guy goes, "I'd really like to be able to put a Rock and Lock AK mag that I can buy from Magpul for a third of the price of the Mini 14 magazine in this rifle." And
Okay.
I said, okay. So I designed and made an insert that would replace the original Mini 14 insert. So now that was our second. And I actually patented the design on that because it was worth it uh, for doing that whole thing. And so that's where that started. And now we've got a bunch of products on the website. General manager Tony, he's been big into competitive shooting for probably 40 years. And he shoots the go fast pistol stuff. So he's into the custom magazine holders and, all that kind of Gucci stuff. And
Yeah.
he's into that. He's also into reloading. So he's into making custom parts for his reloading machines to make his reloading life easier and faster. So he's got stuff like that he's wanting to put on the website. We've got a couple of knives that I finally found a knife shop, a grind shop up in Utah that they made the blades for us, and we're making the scales, whether they're printed scales or machined aluminum or titanium scales.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna have a pair of our first knives that we 3D print the sheaths for. That's the next product that's probably going to drop here next month.
Very cool.
So yeah, we're trying to do cool stuff and having a shop where you can do all your own stuff, and you can 3D print. You get to 3D print your models off your designs and kind of go, oh yeah, this feels cool before it goes to the blade grinding and you're in it for big money. We get to figure it all out from one day to the next. Like, okay, design's done. Drop this in the printer tonight. You come in tomorrow. You've got two of them in your hand. You can see what it looks like.
Yeah,
You
I
know.
mean 3D printers, and they're so accessible. You can buy a little cheapie and just set it up on your computer desk and at least have an idea of what your product's gonna actually feel like before you're actually
Yeah,
making anything.
yeah,
It's incredible. We really
yeah,
do live in a day and an age where, I mean, you mentioned earlier that you bought some scanners, some 3D scanners. I can only imagine how expensive they were at that time.
yeah. Like, ooh, I've got one by my desk. Yeah, when you're talking, like scanners like this, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars, not like you're not scanning stuff with your phone.
Yeah, but I know nowadays you can get them for a couple $100, at least good
Yeah,
enough to
yeah,
make a
there are.
3D print off of.
Yeah. So that particular scanner, I've scanned a helicopter, I've scanned a tractor trailer truck.
Oh, wow.
So like to be fair, and the scans end up accurate within about 4,000. So to be fair, you have to pay for that kind of accuracy.
Oh, yeah.
But you're right, there are accessible. Same thing with the 3D printers. You don't need the $500,000 HP machine. You could go out and get a $3,000 or $4,000 FDM printer and go into some pretty solid production on cool little parts. And you can actually use that to make money if that's
Yeah.
the niche you're trying to fill.
And even I've kind of been looking at, because I a lot of what I try to do is just give people ideas to be creative, and there's even these companies now making these little desktop CNC machines, and you're not going to cut massive car parts on them, but you could certainly make a knife on
Yeah.
them. And they are coming in around, some of these little desktop machines are coming in around, about $5,000. And you're not going to make, you're not going to run a business, a CNC machining business, but you could
Yeah.
certainly get creative and prototype
You
stuff
can
with
get
them.
prototyping business for sure.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of cool stuff coming on the market and a lot of interesting, cool ways for people to express themselves and make
Yeah.
their own little things. So
Yeah, we discussed doing a desktop injection mold machine, because they make small mold machines that have like a 5-inch platen, and and especially if we could 3D print the mold
mhm.
tabs for it, and you could be into an injection mold process in a day, you
Yeah,
know.
I've actually, there's a guy on TikTok that's got a whole TikTok channel dedicated to, that's what he does. He
Yeah.
has a small injection mold business in his spare bedroom. So, well, that's cool. So what I imagine having an engineer on staff is integral to helping develop a lot of these products. Where is the fusion of like the ideas and bringing them to life? How does that process work for you guys?
For our own products, it's really just a labor of love. Like you just go, like, this is the thing I'd really like, and I think other people would like it too.
Mhm.
And you go at it. You do, because we can do rapid iterations. We do, I'll do the first one. I'll print it out. I'll check and see if I like it. I'll hand it off to 2 or 3 other people here in the shop, see if they like it. Maybe ask, do the phone a friend kind of thing. Hey, take a look at this and let me know what you think. There's a firearms and Olympic air pistol manufacturer in Florida that we're talking to about being an accessories parts manufacturer for, and kind of partnering up with them to help make stuff that their customers are asking them for, but they don't have the bandwidth for. And it's the kind of thing that my kids are into. So we're making grips for Olympic air pistols, and those should be on the website here pretty soon, if Tony didn't already throw a couple of them on there. And scope rings and optics mounts and that kind of thing. So it's all, it depends on who it is in the shop. Our other designer, Karen, she's big into UFOs and finding Sasquatch and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that stuff
Yeah,
too.
you know. So she this last week she was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take a couple hours and work on making a belt clip like carry case for this Geiger count." And I'm like, "Okay, like figure it out. We're gonna need a new page on the website for
Does
for the
Sasquatch trip Geiger counters or something?
I think in that whole sphere, there are people who are worried about radiation. There's people who are looking for ghosts, and there's people who are looking for Sasquatch, and there's a lot of overlap in all that.
Huh. Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
they've got ghost monitors and Geiger counters and all kinds of and night vision goggle hangers and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm like, hey, we'll make another page. We'll throw it up there. You never know.
Quick pit stop. If you're enjoying the show, hit subscribe and drop a rating. It helps more machinists and makers find us. Tell a friend. Tell your crew. Tell the guy running the second shift. Follow me along on social media at machine_tool_maniac for thoughts, updates, and some funny memes. We're growing this community with more guests, more value, and more stories that push people to create. So if you've got a niche product getting manufactured or a shop with a cool story, email me at machinetoolmaniac@gmail.com or check out the website machinetoolmaniac.com for merch. All right, back to the episode. So on that, I'd really like to talk about some of your philosophy about management and creating culture in your company, and tell us about that.
So, kind of like what we talked about at the beginning, doing the whole be no do thing is, I think, probably the most important part of it. Because if I end up running around doing the things I'm telling people not to do, like I probably shouldn't be doing this. I should probably not be in management, even though I've seen plenty of managers who do that, and like it just doesn't work for me. Um, the other thing is with open lines of communication. We've got, we don't have a super large company or anything, but everybody knows that everything in here is everybody's responsibility. So if you see something that's wrong, say something, like it's no harm, no foul. If I'm the guy who's setting up and running the CNC machine and the lowest paid person in the building walks by and sees that one part looks different from the other 100 on the table, like I'm not going to be insulted if they go, "Hey, why is this one different?" I'm going to be like, "Thank you. That should not go to the customer." And then I need to go back check all my parts or have that person back check all my parts. Like it doesn't hurt my feelings, not that hasn't happened, but I mean, if it did, I wouldn't be. I'm usually the person who sees the non-conforming part. It's just the way it is. I walk up to a table and I just reach out and pick up something. It's usually the wrong part. And it's like I didn't know it was bad when I picked it up, but I find the one bad part. I don't know what it is. It's probably too many years in a machine shop.
It's like
But
magnetism.
it really is, yeah. But it would never bother me if somebody, and same thing on the product development side. I don't hand a part around to see what people think about it, to have my ego stroked. Like I actually want people to shoot it down. I want them to challenge the idea. I want them to give me their input, their constructive criticism. Sometimes, like especially me and the general manager, we go back and forth at each other. Like, okay, who's going to buy that? Like, why? Why are you like? This doesn't make any sense to me. It's not my thing, because he's into one thing and I'm into another, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and so open lines of communication, making sure that at the end of the week everybody goes home happy, has a good weekend kind of thing. I told you we do a Wednesday meeting where around 3:30 we wheel one of the blue carts out into the kitchen and we open up the freezer and we pull out a bottle of whiskey and open up the fridge and we pull out all the beers and we get a ashtray and a box of cigars and and all the things and the ice or whatever, and we wheel it out into the out in front of the building. We open up the roll-up doors in the front. We go outside and we sit down and we have a chat. Like, okay, like is there anything pressing? And after probably talking about actual company business for 5 or 10 minutes, we just kind of hang out for an hour and chat about each other's lives. Like, what's going on with you? Are you good? Like, you need anything? Hey, I'm moving. I could use a hand on Sunday with a couch. Like, whatever. Like, it could be anything. Sometimes it devolves into people wanting to talk about their favorite movies, which is, like it's Starship Troopers. I don't care. Whatever they said, like it's definitely not the I See Dead People kid. It's all about Starship Troopers. But yeah.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of that. I was like, okay. This is how you create shop culture right here. So Some whiskey.
Yeah. And, treating each other the way we would like to be treated. And I guess trying to help everybody in the shop get a little better at what they're doing every day, myself included. The general manager usually brings stuff to me where, like, we were talking about marketing, or the website's got a problem, or we need to figure this new thing out, and we kind of both churn away at it. Me and Super Grok are best buds, and we try and figure it out, and we try and get a little bit better at it today than we were yesterday. And so far it works.
Yeah, that's good. Sounds like you got a really good thing going. I'm impressed. So, quick fire round. Are you ready?
Sure.
Favorite machine you've ever run?
I know I'm just going to kick myself for saying it, but either a DMG Mori DMU50, or it was an NTX. Was it 1100? I think it's an NTX 1100.
Yeah.
So yeah, DMG Mori machines. If I'm playing with somebody else's money, when you hear the main spindle on a DMG Mori lathe wind up, and you turn your back on it and you're not sure if it's still running, you just go, oh, it is running.
And it's premium.
Yeah. Like, there's something to be said for that.
They are premium machine tools, man.
Thankfully, the Akuma mill has a really quiet spindle, and you can hear it from across the room, but it's not horrible. But the DMG Moris, man, they have a thing.
They build a premium machine. I do joke that if money was no factor, probably most shops would be filled with DMG Moris. But
yeah, it's a true story. A factor. The Celos controller I really like, and you can't get by how solid and rigid and quiet and all the other things they are. Like, the fluid dampened bar feeders are just stupid. Like,
yeah,
I wish I had one every day of the week.
One day. Most challenging part you've ever made?
So I think that would be during my apprenticeship. It was called a reactor chamber, and they dropped off a piece of aluminum that was like 30 inches long by 18 inches wide and 10 or 12 inches deep. And it had a water jet square cut kind of off center out of the middle of the thing. And it ended up being a 90 thousandths thick wall everywhere except for the frame at the bottom that had like 440 or 632 holes tapped all around it. And it was like a 3/4 inch thick rib that ran around that whole bottom piece, with an inset wall that came up to another hole pattern and an O-ring groove on both sides of the thing. But that long ledge out off the bottom of it, and the thin walls everywhere.
Yeah, that sounds.
That job got me a pay raise from $12 an hour to $18 an hour. It did. Okay. When it came through, it had been sitting in the programming. It was like 4 blocks like that had been sitting in the programming room off in the corner. And this guy who had like 25 years of experience was supposed to have started the job last month. And I had watched, because I was doing my own thing, and there's like 4 computers lined up for programming space, And I had watched this guy fully program that part 2 or 3 times, and he'd get to the end of it, and he's just like, I don't think that's going to work. And he'd delete the program and start over.
Oh, man.
And I think it was like failure to start repeatedly.
Yeah.
And finally, the shop foreman walked in one day while that guy wasn't there. And he goes, there were three of us, the three other guys in the shop doing programming. We're all sitting in there. And he points at the parts and he goes, okay, who's going to do this project? I need it by the end of the week. It's like Monday morning, 7 o'clock, and he needs all four of those parts done by Friday afternoon. And like everybody at the desk other than me kind of did that whole, push back from the desk, like not it,
Wow.
And I raised my hand. I was like, I'll try.
Cowboy it.
Well, yeah, back to what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm not going to hit the delivery date. Well, it's not going to hit the delivery date sitting there either. So the worst I can do is do my best effort,
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot of stuff doing that because I'd never done a part that was that large with those thin walls, and it was like a straight wall box in the middle of this flange thing. And I had never done jack screws on the inside of a part to hold wall pressure.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a rough finish kind of thing, doing inside, outside. And so all of that and getting it done in basically 5 days, a little less than 5 days, like all of that made that probably the most challenging thing that I had ever done. The Boeing had a thing called the scramjet, this mock stupid missile, or it was supposed to be it was a downsized plane that they miniaturized. I made all the wings. It was a carbon composite wing with an Inconel housing that held it with a shaft, and so there's a lot of Inconel machining and stuff like that on it. Even that job was not. It wasn't challenging. It was just like it was really tight tolerance, but I knew the steps that had to get done to get it done.
Yeah.
And so I didn't count it as challenging. It was time consuming and it had a lot of crazy work in it. But I think that big box was the most challenging thing because my skill level at the time compared to what I knew, compared to what I had to learn that week in order to make good parts, and I actually was walking up and down the line in the manual machine department, like asking these guys with 30 years of experience, like, okay, man, I think this is going to relax after I do this and that. Like, how do I hold this? And what do I do to keep this from flexing and that kind of thing? And it was the old guys who were like, okay, here's what you do.
Yeah.
You get yourself some sheets that are going to fit in there, and you put some jack screws in there, and you jack it out. And then when you're doing it on the outside or on the other side, you're going to end up clamping on all those surfaces to hold them where they need to be. So you got to put your indicator on that wall and clamp that wall in until it hits the right number. So you got to know where you're at. And, I got them done. And so the parts made it through QC. All four did. Probably 2 weeks later, I guess they had made it through QC at the customer's end. And in those follow-on 2 weeks, I also made these really nice leaded Lexan windows that were the other parts to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool because I'd never worked in leaded Lexan before. It was really pretty when it was done, like optically correct and amber. It was really cool. With holes and crazy.
Yeah, I've never done anything like that. That's crazy.
It was fun, And then 2 weeks after that project, or the big boxes were done, the general manager goes, "Hey, Rocky, you need to come outside with me." And I was like, "Oh shit, it's gonna be a fist fight." Like I figured I was in trouble. And he took me out, he sat me down at the break table outside, and he goes, "Okay, you can't tell anybody in the shop what's going on right now, but this is the first real raise that, I'd gone from $8 to $10 to $12." And he goes, "I'm going to give you a raise to $18.50, I think it was." And he goes, "Nobody's ever gotten a raise from $12 to $18.50 that I know of in the machine shop ever. Like, so, and for being an overnight thing, and at the same time, I was passing guys who had years more experience than me. And he goes, so yeah, just don't talk about it. But
Nice.
yeah. And that was the first real big pay jump that I had seen, and having been in a machine shop for only a couple of years, like really gratifying, you know.
So next question, additive or subtractive? Which excites you more right now?
Um, I would honestly say both. I would like to, I don't know if you've seen them, but DMG Mori has them. They've got the Meltio head that they take basically metal wire and feed it in, and you weld an additive part, usually on a 5-axis platen or in one of their vertical turning machines.
Mm-hmm.
You can make your nose cone or your thruster cone or whatever, and you can go and do additive for whatever your reach is for your subtractive. Do that level, then go through, do subtractive, clean up all those surfaces, and then you can do another layer of additive, go back and machine. So you can do it in stages back and forth to build a part that you just couldn't do from casting, because you can close off areas as you go and make areas non-machinable kind of as you're doing both. So
Yeah, I have been to Oak Ridge National Labs
yep, been there.
in oh, you've been there. Okay. So did you see their facility where they have all those test machines in there? Yeah, so they have it's a DMU, and they also have a couple of Akumas that have an additive attachment in them. It's a Trump. The
Yep,
additive unit is built by Trump, but yeah,
yep.
that whole facility out there is absolutely spectacular where they're doing that and
Well, they
testing
can
all
they
those.
can 3D print a jet frame out of titanium, out of powder with lasers there. So like
Yeah.
they're they're obviously winning. Like I'm never gonna own a shop that's that.
No. Well, but what they're doing out there, just for maybe the people listening, is that's funded by the Department of Energy, and
Yep,
they are actually they're a test bed for manufacturing process. So they test manufacturing processes and then disseminate all that information and just make it available for anybody in the country to use. So
yep,
they are testing processes. And when I was out there, and I'm sure it's still the case, their big focus was additive manufacturing. And rightfully so. We all know that that's kind of it's it might not be 100% the future, but it's going to be very integral. So nonetheless, so yeah, that's what gets done out there. So yeah, very
got it.
cool. One tool or piece of software that you can't live without.
Yeah, my Minotaur calipers. I mean, probably. I mean, I use SolidWorks every day. I use Hypermill every day. So either modeling new parts or taking in customer files in SolidWorks and being able to do stuff with them. We bring scan data into SolidWorks and make parametric models out of scan data. We do all that in SolidWorks. Um, so yeah, but I mean, yeah, the calipers are always, they're always present. And anytime somebody hands me something and says, what do you think about this? I usually pick up calipers and go, well, I think this is the stock size I'm going to start with.
It's like a
you know,
tape measure for a carpenter. So
yeah, yeah. Um, Same thing. Hypermill. I do all our 5-axis programming with Hypermill. You could take it away from me and I'd go program at the machine if I had to. Like it wouldn't, I mean, it would break my heart, but
yeah,
but I mean it's possible. but without a decent set of calipers, yeah, I just wouldn't even show up at work.
Yeah. All right. And the last one is, if you could give a piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Work harder. Nobody cares. I think I've known that the whole time though. I don't know that I would change. I don't know that I would change anything. I could say if I had known, because when I went to Pima, I didn't know what a CNC machine was. I picked it out of a list. I didn't know what a reamer was when on the first day of my job working in a machine shop. So if I had been introduced to that stuff when I was 16 years old, I would probably be a far more successful person today. But I don't know that I would have had the drive that I had coming out of the military. So it's a wash. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so I wouldn't change anything.
It's a good
But
way to
yeah,
think of it.
nobody cares. Work harder.
Nobody
That's
cares. Work harder.
yeah. I adopted that probably 20 years ago. And if I had known that 30 years ago, I probably would be far more successful and it wouldn't have changed a thing, other than maybe my drive at the very beginning of where I started off. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us on this episode, and huge shout out. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate this. Go ahead and give out any contact info where people can find you, anything you'd like to give out. The floor is yours.
You can always find us for anything, engineering or 3D or machine related at solutions at AZ3D Print. And my email is Rocky at AZ3D Print. That's usually the best way to get a hold of me because I always answer. And check us out on Regolith Forge. We're always doing new stuff. If you've got an idea yourself for something that you think would be a cool product that you'd like to have on Regolith Forge, let us know. We'll at least field it, and see, if everybody's down with it. We've done stranger stuff. But az3dprint.com, we make stuff. And I'm looking for an apprentice too. So
she's looking for an apprentice.
Always.
If there's anybody in Tucson, Arizona, or wants to relocate to Tucson, Arizona, there you go.
I appreciate it, Matt.
Yeah.